and welcome to Super Pinoy on Apna TV, Channel 36. You are watching Tuesdays with Kuya Romy, and in this segment, we introduce different people and organizations who are doing a lot of work in our various communities. With us today is Nipun Wadwa, who is the Business Development Manager for Employsure. And Nipun, mind letting our audience know something about yourself and then talk about what you're doing at Employsure.
I've been working with small to medium-sized business owners in New Zealand for the last 7-8 years. My expertise has been helping them grow the business and be more stable. And that's why for the past 1.5, 2 years, I've been working with Employsure, who are a private organization but specialize in working alongside small to medium-sized enterprises, making sure that their health and safety and employment relations are all up to date and they're always compliant. In case of any emergency or support, we come in as an expert and we help them to manage any given situation.
Right. So what benefits will, let's say, small and medium enterprises coming from the ethnic communities, how can they benefit from what you're offering?
See, the most important support that we can provide ethnic business owners is particularly complying with the law of New Zealand, because the law keeps changing every now and then. And it's sometimes very hard for the business owners to keep themselves, at par with what's going on. That's where Employsure comes into picture, because not only we can help them manage the employees, get the contracts, policy documents up to date, so that in case of any dispute or disagreements, Employsure can actually support the business owners. Whereas in terms of health and safety, it's really important. We come across so many cases on a regular basis that the business owners have been penalized for not following the health and safety protocol. We come in, we help them understand what the requirements are, what are the obligations that they have, and how we can help them be compliant so that in case things go belly up, we've got them covered no matter what.
Yeah. So in our communities, there are those who are relatively new to New Zealand, and of course, the exposure that they have prior to coming to New Zealand, the understanding of business processes, the understanding of the business landscape, it would be different from what we have in New Zealand. Is there anything in particular that you think will be striking in terms of uniqueness in New Zealand?
Definitely. In New Zealand per se, employees always have an upper hand when it comes to disputes or arguments with the business owner. So no matter how much generous the business owners are towards the employees, but at the end of the day, if things are not going as planned, employees, based on the employment agreement that generally are given to the business owners from the employment lawyers or from other advocates, are supporting the employees, which means the business owners are always vulnerable in terms of following the right process. And if they haven't followed the right process, they are always at a greater risk of getting penalized because of employee going against them and filing a personal grievance case for them.
Yeah. So when we have, say, for example, individuals or groups in our communities who are thinking of going into business, right? At what point during that cycle, starting up, somewhere in between, getting bigger, at which point should they at least talk to you and see if you can help them?
Well, the best starting point would be to get us involved when they're planning to hire people. So once they've registered the company, once they know the business plan, when they grow to a level where they want to bring in resources, human resources, to support them with the day-to-day operation, that's when they should get us involved as an HR expert. We can not only guide them in terms of how they should bring on employees, but we can also tell them what kind of relationship they should have with the employee. For example, a restaurant might have some full-time employees. A restaurant might also have some casual staff who is just filling up for the full-time employees when they are away.
Or some contractors.
Or subcontractors, for that matter, when it comes to specific jobs, or subcontracting to outside subcontractors. So all those things can be discussed before they actually bring on or tie up their relationship with any employees or contractors. Because we can then guide them how they should follow the process what are the things, what are the prerequisites that they have to look into before they bring on any staff.
Your specialty is in HR
Yes.
and health and safety.
Yes.
Yeah. So what other concerns apart from, of course, HR and health and safety should small and medium enterprises be looking at?
Well, there are a lot of things that they should be looking at. First thing first, they have to make sure that the accounts, the numbers of the company are taken care of. That's the reason they have to have a good chartered accountant to help them through the initial stages. But when, as I said, when it comes to a stage where the business has grown to a level where they are planning to bring in staff to support the day-to-day operation, that's where they should have some HR and health and safety support.
Yeah.
And Employsure is pretty much in that area supporting SMEs across New Zealand.
Okay. We're going to take a break for now, and when we come back, we'll talk more about what Nipun and his team at Employsure are doing for the small and medium enterprises. Stay with us.
Super Pinoy, ikwento mo.
We are back, and you're watching Tuesdays with Kuya Romy here at Super Pinoy at Apna TV channel 36. And coming back to our very good conversation with Nipun. Nipun, there's something that I'd like to ask you. We were talking about vulnerability of employers, right?
Yeah.
What would be the weakest, or what have you observed as the weakest link when it comes to that vulnerability?
Well, I think most of the business owners, whether they are new to the business market or whether they've been running the business for so many years, most of the times when things go out of control between them and employees, they forget to follow the right process as per the legislation. And if they forget to follow the right process to handle any situation, that's where things could go even worse.
When you say when you say process, this is step number 1, step number 2.
Yes. So there are a lot of steps that they have to follow. For example, if they have to discipline a staff because he or she is not following the rules of the business or not following the instructions given by the business owner. For example, they have to give them verbal warning or take disciplinary action. That's when they have to actually follow prerequisites before they actually can go out and give a verbal notice or verbal warning to them to an employee.
Yeah.
Yeah. During the COVID, when there were a lot of businesses struggling to keep the business going, a lot of businesses went through restructure and made the staff redundant. A lot of business owners missed out on the steps which were really crucial in that process, which led to further complications because the employees went out and spoke to employment lawyers and came back with personal grievance cases against the business owners, costing them even more.
Yeah. So it's essential that they follow the process, and if they're not familiar with the different processes, and by the way, the processes, they do change a lot, right?
Absolutely. So every time there's a new situation, the process will change. For example, there are new policies that are being introduced since September 2019. There are a lot of changes that came about. There are a lot of changes coming out this year, which is increase in the wages from 1st of April, and there's discussion around adding 5 more sick holidays to the previous 5 number. So every business owner should consider all these changes, should be able to keep themselves on top of these changes by updating the policy documents and the contracts.
Yeah.
If they're not doing it, they're pretty much not keeping the warrant of fitness alive for their business.
Yeah. There's a lot more to talk about. For example, the coming changes like additional sick leave, but we're not going there for now because I know that this is still being consulted with the public, right? So there's public consultation, and if you're interested to know more about this, get in touch and with directly to that one. Nipun, there's one thing that I'd like to ask you. There was one time when I attended one of your seminars, and I was not a member or not a part of Employsure, but your people invited me to attend. So. What's happening there?
So definitely. So as a private company, we still want to support our local business community. And that's the reason Employsure keeps running such seminars every now and then. During the COVID lockdown, we were running webinars because that was a new norm. So we were inviting people on Zoom webinars. But now because we are out of it, we are basically having, again, like a couple of years ago, that we are basically booking a venue, inviting local businesses there to kind of discuss their concerns or educate them about the upcoming changes. I think as a service provider, that's our duty, and that's why we do such events every now and then.
Okay. So before we say goodbye, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask Nipun to have the last word. Okay.
Sure.
Any last words you'd like to leave with our...
So definitely, I'd like to reiterate whatever I've said. So if you are planning to start a business or you're already a established entity, definitely consider somebody who can actually help you manage your HR and health and safety. Because at the end of the day, if you're not following the right process while managing the employees, you're basically leaving yourself to a lot of risk, which could be not only costly financially, but also be stressful mentally and emotionally. So always cover yourselves.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Nipun and to Employsure for being with us today.
Thank you.
Next time, stay with us, and we'll bring you some more people who are working in the communities and helping out our communities in one way or another. So this is Kuya Romy on Tuesdays with Kuya Romy. Super Pinoy on Apna TV, Channel 36. See you.
Super Pinoy, ikwento mo.
Super Pinoy, ikwento mo!
From VOA News, let's take a look at what's happening in other parts of the world.
The vision was born 6 decades ago. Former President John F. Kennedy outlined the program and prospects of young Americans going abroad to not only serve shoulder to shoulder with citizens of other countries, but also learn from them.
What is remarkable is that there is no salary for the members of the Peace Corps. They will go abroad and live on the same standard as people of other countries, but they will work with them 2 or 3 years, devoting part of their lives to peace and to strengthening the ties that bind men together all over the globe.
It was an audacious idea at the time, some said, but fast forward 60 years, the idea has been realized, says John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum Director Alan Price.
It's been a fantastic idea, thanks to the hard work of volunteers and the hard work of host countries. I think that the goal as a long-term strategy to promote peace and friendship has been largely successful.
In the past 60 years, about 241,000 Peace Corps volunteers have served in more than 140 countries worldwide, says Peace Corps Acting Director Carol Spahn, who also noted a variety in the ages of participants.
Peace Corps volunteers range in age from 20 to 85. The bulk of them, tend to be in their 20s. But when I was serving as country director in Malawi, we had one of the oldest serving volunteers at that time. She was 82 years old and just a pistol. She was terrific.
Spahn was 26 when she decided to serve in the Peace Corps in Romania. It was 3 years after the fall of communism. Some people were suspicious, she says, but it was a life-changing experience for her.
What happens with many volunteers is you go into Peace Corps with a certain worldview or some expectations of why things are the way they are. And as you live and work with people that are different from yourselves, you start to ask questions. And when you go in with curiosity, you learn what's behind why things maybe happen differently than they do in your own country, or why people hold certain values, and what that history is.
Dwayne Matthews is also a returnee who spent time in Malawi from 2013 to 2015. He now works for the Department of Housing and Urban Development and is pursuing a PhD program at Washington's Howard University. He's from Little Rock, Arkansas, and had never traveled abroad before.
When I got to Malawi, it was a complete culture shock. That first week or so was terrifying, but then by the time I was leaving Peace Corps, I actually broke down in tears because I had to leave. So it was the best choice I made in my young adult life up to that point.
The youth in Malawi don't have a voice.
While there, he served as a community health advisor who worked on many projects. One of his proudest is securing a nearly $7,000 grant to help build a youth center a project the community also contributed to, he said.
The community, they actually donated like 30% of of what we needed. So the community donated the land, they donated some of the labor, they donated some of the bricks and quarry stone. We actually had money remaining because of the community contribution, which is how we knew this project was going to be sustainable because the community wanted it.
Christopher Destish served in Guatemala from 2018 to 2020. He's now a regional recruiter for the Peace Corps.
I lived in a small Mayan community. There's about 2,000 people in the community that I was in. And I lived with a 3-generation indigenous Mayan family, which was really awesome. Very chaotic, but very loving.
While there, he says, he partnered with the Guatemalan Ministry of Agriculture to implement their rural extension program.
So basically, I was working with them to give trainings to increase the capacity of rural Mayan farmers. The objective was to increase their capacity to grow food and thereby decrease things like food insecurity, malnutrition, and hunger.
Both Matthews and Destish say they've learned life lessons and skills they wouldn't have had they not served in the Peace Corps. Mariama Diallo, VOA News, Washington.
New York Times best-selling author Rahaf Harfouch is hosting a discussion on a new social media platform called Clubhouse. She spends at least 2 to 3 hours a day there, hosting 3 weekly shows, co-hosting others, and listening to others still.
There are chefs and movie producers and entrepreneurs and artists and writers and athletes, and everybody is like finding their own group, and everyone is thinking about how they can contribute.
Harfouch says the most interesting discussions happen in closed groups. But even in open rooms, there's plenty to listen to. Shows hosted by people like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, or Jared Leto.
Thanks for inviting me up. It's good to hang with all of you.
All right, Vlad. What really happened? Give us the inside scoop.
The network is invite-only and for now is only available on iPhones. The platform doesn't allow recorded discussions, unless the speaker gives a special permission to have the talk recorded. However, the users violate the rule way too often. In recent weeks, the number of Clubhouse users skyrocketed from 600,000 to 8 million, pushing the company's value to $1 billion.
This really enables people to have a real-time audio experience, much like a group chat, like over voice, but you might be connecting with people you don't know yet, or you might be connecting with existing friends.
Ouyang has so far counted almost 30 similar Clubhouse competitors, and by the end of the year, he expects there to be more than 100. One big downside is privacy issues. Users should always assume they are being recorded, but that's not all.
For example, online bullying or misinformation or other nefarious acts, or people just committing scams that could possibly lead people astray, let alone false information being spread even by foreign state actors and from every potential location on the globe.
For now, Clubhouse is free, but experts say in future the company might consider premium accounts, paid subscriptions and advertising. Maria Bruce for VOA News, Washington.
It all happened when the city issued a memorandum, and the memorandum stated that if you are caught selling food on the street, they were going to take everything away from you and they were going to give you a $1,000 fine. For us, it was just at the exact moment when they say you can't sell anymore, that was the end of it. And so it was for so many street vendors here in LA. There was a point where I honestly just didn't have enough for the rent. And I just didn't have enough for my internet, and that forced us to open up an emergency GoFundMe. Reaction to the public to our GoFundMe was so great. Since they donated $7,000 or $5,000 initially, and so we have like a couple of rents now, we felt that through that we had a sort of like a commitment to pay back the community. We realized that there were some people that just didn't have the courage to ask for help. I reach out to the community fridges and I say, you know what, I think we can set up this fridge out here. This erases the face-to-face. We can just set up a fridge and say, I don't want to know if you need help. I don't want to know if you whatever, you know. Just go grab it. With that, I came up with the idea, oh, maybe we do a cookout because there's a lot of people who live on the streets that they don't have a way to cook something that we do. For example, grilled meat, have this with cheese and all that. Because if you're living on the street, you have no refrigeration, you have no access to fire, so there's no way you can cook. So I'm like, what if we do something like this? Cookouts are usually every Tuesday, and we give away about 120 to 150 plates. I think we're, including this one, that's like 21 or 22 cookouts. So give or take about, just the cookouts itself, about 3,500 meals.
Thank you.
And all the things that people are experiencing with COVID, isolation and not being able to talk to your neighbor and distrust and hate towards the government and all that kind of stuff. When people wait in line and then they get this food, it is just the beacon of hope, the beacon of saying, look, my own community, this brown man is there and he looks like me and he is feeding me. It sends a signal that someone cares about you.
The anxiety of living through a pandemic with food insecurity, I think all of us are so anxious, and what's better than a hot meal? I know personally when I'm not feeling well, if someone drops some soup over to me, not only does it warm my body, but it does warm my spirit.
Brittany Valles has been in the restaurant business since she was 18. She went from waiting tables to being a cafe manager to transforming her simple taco stand called Gorilla Tacos into a high-end Los Angeles restaurant. She later found it was helpful to keep in touch with other women in the business.
Not having an ally to get advice from was difficult in the beginning, but that every year there are more women in our industry, more chefs, more operators, and it makes it so much easier.
After the pandemic hit and restaurants began to suffer, Valles and other women in the industry organized a food festival called Regarding Her or Re-Her. Over the course of 10 days, more than 100 women who owned restaurants in Los Angeles advertised and promoted each other's venues. They even offered dishes from the menus of their so-called sister restaurants.
We're all going through a lot, women in particular, especially if you're a mom. I mean, those are a lot of big choices that people have to make. If there's a lack of childcare, for example, and moms are having to stay home and mother their children, school their children, and on top of that, try to run their businesses.
Next, Regarding Her plans to hold a fundraiser so the organization can provide grants to female-owned restaurants in Los Angeles. Members say the goal is simple: to provide financial help, condition-free.
There is a moment now with the pandemic where you have to look for your strengths. And we saw that in her gathering all these women, that there was some vital energy that we all needed to feed off of because we were all having such a tough time. So, and there's this female,
it's like female camaraderie.
Camaraderie that is, where you realize that you're all in the same boat together.
Regarding Her, members also offer each other coaching and mentoring as they look for support during these trying times. Jenny Adulo for VOA News, Los Angeles, California.
I got a rice bowl with chicken, and it's delicious.
Basically, it's a restaurant that we want to present Filipino food to the masses. I mean, everyone knows about Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese.
So what we have here is the pork adobo belly. So like I said, this is what people actually goes for. And then this is the chicken version of that, chicken adobo. So every household in the Philippines can actually cook adobo. So we want it to be here. We want that, the culture. We want to introduce the culture, which is this is one of them. So here you go, the adobo.
I was born in California. I don't remember that because every 2 years we moved in different places because my father was in the military. Lived in Korea, Japan, Germany, Alabama, Florida. Like at home I'm Filipino, but like when I communicate to the world, I'm like still American. My father always instilled, he says, you are a Filipino. Wherever you go, so you're a Filipino, you have to strive harder, you have to work harder. So that's why we try to excel in everything that we do. My roots are still Filipino, like when all my cousins come through and all of a sudden you feel like a connection to them. I'm not really like that, but but you feel like them. What I recommend is our national dish, which is the Filipino adobo.
His cooking definitely hits home. It's the right flavor. It's the right seasoning. He marinates his meat really well. It's also fresh. In the past, I would say 5 or 6 years. You could see just hints of fusion. But there's also something like this, which is just completely just all Filipino, which is celebrated by all of us.